film world, I am the Patric, your host of Tomorrow Comes Movies, the podcast that, spoiler, talks movies. And each episode will feature a guest co-host, and it'll be a rotating affair of friends who love movies to varying degrees. Thank you so much for tuning in. A special thank you to everybody who tuned into the first episode, which technically isn't the first episode. And one thing I should have mentioned on the first episode, which I will mention on this episode, is whenever a guest co-host comes on for the first time, we do a little thing called the introduction, where I ask them questions and we kind of get to know the guests so you can understand them when they review movies. You kind of get an idea and a feel of who they are, what type of movies, actors, directors, et cetera, that they like, and, favorite genres and stuff like that. And if they are returning guest co-hosts, I'll kind of ask them some questions of whatever's happening in the world of movies, news or whatever came out that weekend or whenever we record. So yeah, I just want to address that whenever you listen to this podcast, you will always get a movie review, but it might be after an introduction or a little banter between the guest co-host and myself. And what else? There's a few things before I introduce this episode's guest co-host. Oh yeah, if you listen to the episode and you would like to share feedback, you can send me a DM on the Tomorrow Comes Movies social media pages, which is at TOCMovies on Twitter. I'm not going to call it X, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky. I'm on Threads now. And when you listen to the episode, I should have mentioned this in the first episode, which technically isn't the first episode. Whenever you listen, you can add us if you want to post something, or you can use the hashtag TOCMovies as one word. Of course, you would do that because it wouldn't be a hashtag. But yeah, do that. And if I see it, which I usually will check in to see if anybody said anything, I'll respond. But yeah, all feedback is welcome. Whether it's good or bad, that's just how it goes when you create. And there's one more thing. Oh yeah, if anybody listens, I would love to hear people's thoughts on the intro and outro music. I kind of worked with somebody to create both, with the idea of it being something cinematic. And so I just want to know what people thought of it. But yeah, that's it. So without further ado, let's introduce this episode's guest co-host, somebody who I have done podcasts with before. Please welcome my awesome Twitter mutual, but more importantly, the host of one of the best movie podcasts out here today, Drake, aka Average Film Guy, the host of the First Watch podcast. How you doing, Drake?
I'm good. I would give you a little bit of pushback on that, on the best movie podcast out there. I think I would. I don't know if I'd give myself so much high praise, but I'm glad to return the favor on coming on podcasts.
Well, how many episodes do you have right now?
So 13, 14, something like that, somewhere in the teens.
And how long have you been doing this?
Well, I was creating content a long time ago. I started trying to create content a long time ago. I was also at a point in my life when I was just kind of lost and like all over the place. So I wasn't consistent with anything, and because I wasn't consistent with anything, nothing was necessarily getting better. But once I fixed some things in my own life, I started becoming more consistent. Like, I've been consistent with the podcast at least since end of January. of this year, um, like probably mid-January of this year. But yeah, now that I've been more consistent with that, I've noticed some definite like changes in the podcast, or at least in my way of doing things and being more comfortable. But I haven't been doing content creation that long, um, consistently that long. But attempting, I've been doing it for a while. But yeah,
Well, creating the thing about creators, because you are one, is I always have a lot of respect and admiration for them because people have no idea how much hard work, what goes on behind the scenes. We were just talking about this off recording. There's a lot that goes into it. It's easy to be a consumer. It's harder to be a creator
yeah,
because nobody wants to support you in the beginning. I know this from
nope,
experience. I did it with the original show. Um, people want the success, but they don't want to go through the hardship of the work.
yeah,
You know what I mean? But you love movies, you
I
know?
do.
And so we're gonna do this little introduction before we review our movie. And so I'm gonna ask you this. I doubt you remember this, but I remember a specific moment. Do you remember how we became, or like, do you remember like our like an interaction of like how we
You
kind of
remember a specific moment? Oh shit.
yeah.
Okay, interesting. Um, I remember coming across your stuff on film Twitter, like I do most of the people that I keep up with now. Um, but that was also when I was kind of hazy. Like I know I was still drinking and doing all that dumb shit. So a lot of times I would be drinking and on Twitter and like talking to people and shit. But I remember coming across you talking about movies and stuff. And at that time, like I think you were one of the first follows that I had on film Twitter because it was a brand new account that I had on Twitter. Like I'd had Twitter before, but I wanted separation of the interests between accounts. So I was trying because the algorithm is so fucked up that it never really stays like streamlined like it's supposed to, or like what I would hope it would be. So I ended up creating a brand new account for the purpose of talking about film. And I think you were one of the first people that I followed, and then like a handful of other people, and it's only grown from there. But I do remember you talking about certain like different movies. I can't remember which one it was that you were talking about, but I remember following you because you were interacting with other people that I'd seen, and yeah, that's kind of how I got there. I have a crap memory, so I don't know like
Yeah.
the ins and outs, but
All
I
good.
do remember that.
You didn't have these questions ahead of time, but this is how I remember us. With
Yeah,
every mutual, I will remember a specific moment. As soon as I bring up the name, you might remember it. Jenna Ortega
yeah.
is
I already know
she
what you're. All right, yeah.
yeah. So
That was
she's
a
one of
long
my
fucking day.
favorite young actors, but she gets a lot of flack because her movie taste outside of her profession, many people feel is better than what she's picking as roles.
Yeah, 100%.
Sometimes I would have to go in there and be on those front lines defending her because I'm like, guys, like relax. Like it's really not that big of a deal. Every actor does these kind of movies, especially young ones, and it all comes down to politics in Hollywood. That's a lot of things people don't realize. So your agent, your social media is a big deal now, and also like who's in your class that they're like, look at her class. You got Jenna, or you
Yeah.
got Zendaya, you got Florence Pugh, Anna Taylor Joy, you got Isabel Merced. So somebody was arguing. I don't know if I might have been involved in it, but I remember you going back and forth, and I went in there and I pulled like a Chinatown reference. I was like, hey man, like don't even worry about these people, like because this person was just so mad.
It was just one guy with a fucking USC, like, University of Southern California fucking logo. I was like, "Alright, brother." Like, and he was saying shit that didn't even make any sense. Most of his argument was, if I can remember correctly, was it's all Jenna Ortega's fault because she solely picks all of her roles. I'm like, "Buddy, that's not how things work. Like, it doesn't work that way." And not only that, there are so many other factors that go into movie making that you don't even realize that, like, you don't know how many days they had to shoot that. Don't know how many days they had for prep. You don't know who the director was. You don't know, like, you don't know how they were behaving on set. You don't know what the edit was. You don't know, like, as far as, like, that entire process. There's so many different things that can go into the final product of a movie that you don't even look at. You're only looking at one thing singularly. But as far as, because I this was around the time the Death of a Unicorn came out, and that's why that whole conversation was happening in the first place, was her being the standout problem. But it's like, no, like, there were so many other issues with that movie that was not her. Like, she was probably one of the only, like, decent parts of the movie. So I don't understand why they were going after her. I think mostly it's just due to the fact of her just being a successful woman. I may be wrong, but that's what it felt like, at least the way that he was speaking. Um, in the arguments that he had, it just felt like he didn't like the fact that she was successful and he really wasn't doing much. But I don't know.
No, you. If this was like a fight, you were connecting constantly, and he was just throwing punches left and right. None of them were landing. But I was just like, I'm like, let me save Drake some time here because he changed his mind because he. I mean, I'm gonna say he's a moron because
Oh no, he was.
yeah, this thing with social media, it's good because it can bring you to people who have similar interests like you and I with movies, but it can also be negative with people putting every actor under a microscope because now your opinion can be submitted to thousands or hundreds or millions of people based off an opinion. You just press send, boom. I don't like this, and so I always remember that with you. And then I remember you launched your podcast, and I was like, that's cool, because I want to see people who are passionate about anything, but for me in particular, people who love movies creating because it's so much more exciting in life when you start creating your own stuff. You're even going further than just your podcast. You're in school to do things in film and TV, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I'll be. I, dude, I was in college a long time ago. I was fucking up, like I was saying before, and you know, I was in like a deep, dark depression for a while, and then I finally got back into it, going back into school, um, in the summer of 25, and then I just started getting back, and then like I'll be finishing up this semester here pretty soon, and then I should be transferring to another school to like do film and television production. I don't know what school I'm going to yet because I haven't gotten that far. Like I don't know what my GPA is going to be, and I know for some schools I have some time before I have to submit a application. But I'm going to be doing that here pretty soon within the next couple of weeks, submitting applications, and I should know where I'm going within the next month or so. Um, and then I'll be starting that process here pretty soon.
Good for you. Because we
Yeah.
need more people who actually love movies and television to work. Because I have dabbled with the original show in the press side of the industry, and I can tell you, I'm not gonna. I could tell you off mic who told me this, but there was several managers of big names. One in a particular horror franchise, they ran an actress who's in one of the biggest horror franchises, and I said, "What was the best advice would you give?" To us about getting this industry, and he said, "Don't." That was it. And he was a really cool manager, by the way. But I just remember being so taken back by that because I was just like, "Then why are you in this?" Obviously,
Yeah.
because it's money, but that's why I've always been a big supporter of you because you're doing it. Okay, you're not over here just saying ridiculous movie takes. You're actually putting the work in. You're watching movies and you're getting your podcast. By the way, before I get into this, I'll tell people what the First Watch podcast is.
Yeah, so the premise of the show came from Letterboxd. Every month they'll do like, what are your favorite first watches of the month? And they ranged from anything from like Roman Holiday all the way to like, The Matrix or whatever. Like, it was all over the place. It was all different types of movies. And I noticed that whenever people were talking about their first watches, they were getting very passionate. about like what they liked about seeing a movie for the very first time, especially if it was something that had been sitting on their watch list forever, and they finally decided to put it in or pop it on and watch it and give it a chance. And I was like, well, I have a hard time with that anyways. If I make it productive for a reason, and like I'm not like if I make it a thing for more of a creative outlet, I'll actually kind of force myself to watch it, and then I can have these cool conversations that people are having online anyways, just in a longer format. And I could probably help other people take off other movies on their watch list too. And then we're just kind of being productive while also having fun at the same time.
Yeah,
So I was like,
and
hey,
you did the
why
same.
not?
Yeah. Thanks to you, I saw my first Agnes Varda movie, Les
Yes,
Bonheur.
sir.
I'll link that in the episode, show
Yeah.
notes. Yeah, you should check it out because that I loved your concept. This is probably why my version of this show, I don't I don't I give you a list because I'm doing monthly themes right now,
Yeah.
but eventually I'm gonna do something with film recommendations. But yeah, that's why I was trying to say earlier. I just didn't want I want you to tell the origin of the podcast, but you're doing it, man. You're getting people to check out movies that they've been leaving on their watch list for a long time, or they haven't seen that director's a movie from that director or actor, and you're also going to be creating things, helping create the next film and TV when you graduate and get out there. It's exciting, you know. Um, we need more of that. We need less of this movie's mid, this movie's slop.
God, get me
Like
started.
enough. Like it drives me absolutely insane when I see stuff like that. So I'm lucky that my corner of the film community is full of people who are creating things and people who are bringing positive energy. Did you see the CinemaCon coverage?
I haven't seen a lot of it. I haven't really been paying attention to the CinemaCon stuff. I should be, but I've also got finals coming up in like 2.5 weeks, so I haven't really been paying attention to it. It's been a long week, so I've only seen it here and there when I've been slightly checking Twitter. I don't know if it was from Sony or from Paramount or whatever. Um, Someone mentioned something about having to like create longer windows for theatrical releases, and like finally looking at theatrical releases as like the viable option instead of going straight to streaming and having shorter windows being a problem, because it is a problem, especially for movies like the drama and stuff like that. Like my parents are going later tonight to go see the drama, but this will probably be the last weekend that it's in theaters, and it's only been in theaters for like 2 weeks, um, which is a problem because I think a movie like the drama should be in theaters for a good period of time. And if it weren't as successful online and not as many people were talking about it online, I feel like it probably wouldn't have lasted even this long in theaters. Um, but yeah, that's all I've really heard about CinemaCon is like some of the trailers that have dropped, and then like some of the actual like one or two executives being like, "Oh yeah, we should probably like focus on theatrical releases."
I'm going to ask you a question about that theatrical model, but Avengers Doomsday dropped a trailer that
Hmm.
is not going to leak because they had people there with green lights and taking people out. But this trailer sparked so much interest that there was a huge discourse online about Avengers Doomsday versus Doom Part 3 because the film community is on Doom Part 3 side. And I get it. I love Doom. But I'm also a comic book movie fan. So I'm
Yeah,
excited for Doomsday. So I wanted to ask you, are you excited for Doom Part 3 and Avengers Doomsday or one or the other?
brother, I'm doing a double feature that day. They come out on the same day.
My
I do
man.
double features every Friday. What are you talking about? I got Regal Unlimited. I'm just doing a double feature. Fuck it.
It's true.
I'm not gonna sit here and compete. I'm just gonna go and have fun.
I'm excited for both. So that's why I wanted to
Yeah,
ask because I'm one of those man, I roll with it all. Like I didn't my movie journey, my film journey was not David Lynch in the beginning. I think it's
yeah.
cool that people who saw David Lynch, Agnes Varda, Kira Kurosawa. I wish I was as cultured as that, but I think just going to the movies and watching things in the 2010s. That's what really helped me understand that I really loved movies. Was going out to see movies like Drive, Shame, The
Mm.
King's Speech, and then all the Marvel movies. So I'm excited for both. I'm gonna do a double feature as well. I just don't know why people are pitting one against the other. I get why, because they're both big things, but we can just enjoy it.
Yeah,
We can
this
just
is a bad mindset to have. I don't like it. It happens all the time, especially in the comic book world. Um, as someone who also reads comics, like it happens a lot in the comic book world. Happens a lot in the gaming industry, where console wars happened forever because they were pitting two companies against each other. It's like, guys, let's just enjoy something, please and thank you. Like, let's just have fun. Can we do that? Like, I understand being critical of things because you want to be able to go and enjoy the things you're spending money on. But like, as far as like competition is really strange. Like for the sake of being like almost, I hate using the word toxic, but like almost like weird at times. People
it,
become really weird.
yeah, it is. And it's cool right now to dunk on Marvel, because
Yeah.
they haven't been the same since Endgame to most people. I'm not as upset because I got Miss Marvel, I got Moon Knight. I'm not complaining. I wanted those for years. I also read comics, but yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. But you did bring up the theatrical model. Now, I want to ask you. You're in charge. The studios all rally you in a meeting. And they said, Drake, we're going to change the theatrical model. How long do we keep movies in theaters before we release it on digital and physical media? And you have final say. So I want to know what you would.
For larger theatrical releases, things like Back to the Future, like Avengers Doomsday, things like that, it'd be a 90-day window. For things like, um, let's say the drama, stuff like that, the smaller films that are more typically indie films, I would go 60-day window. Um, and then maybe 5 showtimes a piece, just so you can get other films in there. Because there are other films that need to be shown that don't have the opportunity to be shown. Like for example, the movie Exit 8 that's based um on a video game. Like I don't have access to that near me. I'd have to go to Atlanta, like 45 minutes away. I don't drive. My closest theater is 5 miles down the road. Like that's the one that I go to every weekend that I go see movies at every Friday. And it's not playing there, but I'm only 45 minutes away from Atlanta. So you would think that, something like that. Like we get the 70 millimeter prints of Odyssey, Project Hail Mary, things like that, but I'm not getting
Uh,
Exit 8.
hmm.
So it's very weird that we're not getting things like Exit 8. So if I was the head um of a movie studio, that's what I would do. I would make a 90-day theatrical window for major movies because you got to make your money back, and then at least 60 days, 45 to 60 days on indie movies.
See, well, most people would probably agree with you. There'd be some people that are gonna be upset, but most people are like, all right, cool. Drake is here about the absolute cinema experience. Now, me, I'm gonna make them very angry because we're going back so old school. It's 6 to 9 months on those big movies, and then another 6 months before those come out on physical media. When it comes to digital, probably after the 6 to 9 months, they'll
Yeah,
come out immediately. I'm going old school. Like
yeah,
we're basically force you to do what? Couple options here. Go and actually watch it, and the cameras are coming back into the movie theater where they film
yeah,
those old school ways because that's the way I would do it. I like it that way, And I know there's every time I bring this up, people always are like, "It's expensive." That is something that I think needs to be worked out too because I used to live in Arizona back in the for about 11 years, from like 2008 to 2019, and probably the first 6 to 7 years, the first showing, the morning shows would be $5 for a movie ticket, and I was living good because there was no subscriptions back then. I was paying out of pocket.
Yeah.
While working at a movie theater, I refused to go to my own movie theater because I hated it, so I went to AMC instead, and we need to bring back the costs, like, down for,
Oh, yeah.
you know now, I don't know about concessions. I've hardly ever bought anything too extravagant outside of popcorn, but everyone
Yeah.
always brings it up. That's an issue. That's what's stopping them from going to the movie theater, spending endless amounts of money on the popcorn, right? You don't have to buy popcorn. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
throw
no,
that
you
out.
don't.
You know,
Um, I've been lucky that my local theater is a Regal, so like I said, I have Regal Unlimited, and with Regal comes, the snack saver thing that you pay $30 for the year. Like last year it was $50 for the year, and then you get half off on large popcorns and large drinks. But the thing is, like, if you go as often as I do, that's paid off in like 2 months. Like, you get your money's worth in like 2 months. So, it's not that big of a deal. But I think that something needs to be done for concessions and for tickets because, like, we go to the movies as a family twice a year for Thanksgiving and Christmas. We've done that since I was a kid. It used to be $200 for six of us, for two adults, four children, about $200 for the tickets alone, not including snacks and all that stuff. So we would find ways to get snacks into the theater. But yeah, as far as like movie tickets and stuff go, like they're very expensive. They need to go down. Like one ticket now for a movie is like $20. And I think that's kind of insane.
that's crazy because I remember IMAX. I saw The Winter Soldier, and tickets were like $15,
Yeah.
and that was IMAX
Yeah.
3D, right? If you're spending $20 on a regular movie, you need to get on that AMC A-list or Regal Unlimited, which I think it pays for itself. I know people
It
love to
does.
argue about this, like, "I'm not gonna go to the movies that much." But as soon as you get it, you seem enticed to go because you realize there's a lot coming out, and Regal brings back movies, so you could go revisit a movie.
Hmm.
It's just it's interesting because I had somebody respond to me about the CinemaCon thing you were talking about. I had wrote something on the podcast, Twitter page, and someone's like, I said, like, "Yeah, they should bring back the 90-day window," and they're like, someone's like, "Oh, yeah, because that's the issue that's stopping people from going." And I was gonna respond, I was like, "Do I really need to go down this rabbit hole? I don't even care
Yeah.
because you're not gonna win with those people. They already
Yeah.
have their mindset, you know? People like streaming at home. I know a lot of people that love streaming, and I get it. It's convenient, you can pause it, but it's not gonna hit the same when you see an iconic moment. You just look around your couch and you're just like, "What'd you guys think of that?" And they're just like they're on their phones like, "It was alright." Like, it could've been better, and you're just
Yeah.
like, yeah, so I'm glad that you are a, supporter of cinema. We need
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Now, this is a question I gave to my first guest, so I'm gonna have to expand on it because they were a little perplexed to when they should answer this question, but what movie or movies made you realize you love cinema? And you can mention yourself as a kid. Because this question was like, well, I love movies as a kid, and I'm like, you can answer it with that or an adult, whatever you realized. I love movies.
Yeah. So as a kid, like I watched all kinds of movies. Like, I was a big fan of sports movies mostly growing up. I watched a lot of those growing up. Anything Disney, I watched a lot. I didn't really get to watch anything like that was heavier until I was older. Um, and I enjoyed watching movies for the sake of just having something to watch at that time as a kid. But as I had gotten older and been through more things and had more life experiences, once I started watching movies with like substance, not the substance, but like with like a bit of like, grit to it, that's when I was like, oh, like this is a whole other thing. Like there's something about this. Once I watched um all that jazz, like a couple not this year, but last year after my dad died, I was like, oh, this is like there's something to this whole thing. And then, I'd been on sets before a couple times, and that was interesting. And like I was curious about that. But then it was like whenever I started to really watch like very, you know, heavy movies, when I was like, oh, there's a lot more to this. And that's when I was like, hell yeah, I'm more into this than I thought.
Wow. You said you were on movie sets?
Like couple like TV sets and stuff, movie sets, yeah. My mom's
Really?
done a lot of
I
extra work. My mom is a script supervisor. She's done a couple things here, like, in the area. Um, you could see me pretty easily on Stargirl season 1, episode 7, I think. Like, I was literally sitting right in front of Luke Wilson the entire time for, like, 14 hours.
look at my face.
Yeah,
I'm totally geeking out. I've
yeah.
only done one. I was in semi-pro with Will Ferrell.
Oh, yeah? That's cool.
I was, no, actually,
No?
it was no, because they conned us in school. Was like, hey, we need extras, so it was like a field trip. We go to Dodger Stadium, and inside Dodger Stadium, there's a basketball court, and that's where they're filming semi-pro. And we're supposed to
Yeah,
be in the crowd. As a young guy, I was like, Will Ferrell can't miss. I mean, he's done Blades of Glory, Talladega Nights, another sports movie. Cool. It was excruciatingly boring and
yeah.
taxing. They didn't give us water or feed us. We were there all day. And Will Ferrell didn't really interact with us or Andre 3000. But Woody Harrelson, that's a class act, gentleman, right there. He would try to entertain us by uh, kicking from the 3-point line balls, and he actually made one. That was crazy watching him do that. Um, and when we left, they want us to return the
That's cool.
props. I tell you, Patrick ain't returning props after you put me through all that nightmare. I put it underneath my shirt and I stole one of the foam fingers.
Yeah,
And then I don't know why, but I didn't watch it when it came out
yeah,
in theaters. I was so done with that movie. And then I
yeah.
saw it, and yeah, it wasn't that good. But I told people at work at a movie theater that I had done it, and a guy brought in his 2 disc. They had a 2 disc special edition, and he had me sign it. And I was like, bro, I was just an extra.
That's
You know what I
funny.
mean? But I would break down scenes that we were in. He was like, oh, that was in the movie. And I'm like, yeah. So, but I didn't know that your mom is a script supervisor. So is that somebody like,
Yeah,
what is
she's
that?
done a couple things.
Don't know.
They're the person who sits there with the script next to the director that, keeps everything in line, like, make sure the continuity is good, make sure all the timing is good, stuff like that. Just kinda keeps track of everything, like, if there's like, if they decide to do, like, a fun run and have the actors, like, do their own thing for a scene, they make notes for the editor for later, so they know kind of like, you know, what they decided to do when. Um, that way it's easier for them later on in the edit. Um, there's a lot of stuff that they do. It's a lot of work.
You've never brought this up before, and I'm totally like, this would have been the first thing I would have brought up. That's awesome, by the way. That is
Yeah.
pretty cool. It's a very vital and important aspect of filmmaking. Um, I'm taking acting classes right now. I didn't even mention it in the first episode, but I finally got my act together, and I tried changing the words for one of them, and the teacher was like, "Probably don't do that because they get upset
Yeah.
if you don't." Yeah, and so but it is interesting to look at a script and kind of have to understand, what you're doing, and it's very descriptive.
Mhm.
And I didn't realize this, but he kept saying like you can't post it what we're doing, and I didn't realize that these were actual scripts for things that have not been filmed. But they're all,
Oh
one of them
shit.
was the Disney Channel, was one of them,
Oh
and so
shit.
I have the casting director's name, and I was just like, oof, if that somebody leaks that, we're gonna be in big trouble. But
Yeah.
yeah. So it's kinda like you're getting to the family business.
Yeah, kinda, I guess, yeah.
Wow,
Technically.
good for you, man. Alright, so now I want you to share a little bit because, like, this whole introduction is just to kinda get for people to gauge who you are. as a
Mhm.
person and also a fan of movies. What are some of your favorite movies, actors, actresses, and directors slash writers? Yeah, you don't have to give me like a full list, but I'm sure there's some that come to mind.
Remember the Titans, I can watch multiple times. Um, Still pulls emotion out of me, every single time, whether it be laughter, crying, whatever. It still gets me. Um, all that jazz. Very recent as far as favorite films go. Seven. Um, and ooh, I'll probably just stick to what my original top four was on Letterboxd and throw in Dogma. Um, but
Ooh.
I love me some Dogma. Um, as far as like favorite directors, Kevin Smith, because of what he was able to do, at least for kind of starting the whole, like really starting the whole like indie wave and like the ability to take your own stuff and say, fuck it, I'm just going to do it and be successful at it. Um, People like David Lynch, obviously, just because of how weird his stuff is. That's kind of why I like it. Elephant Man is one of my favorite movies he has ever done because of the conversation on disability um, that can really be had there that isn't really touched upon. Um, let's see, actors. I'm gonna have to say like uh, Mr. Matthew Lillard. I love him just as a person. He seems like a big old nerd who likes to have fun. Um, and I love that. Uh, trying to think of a. I've really come to like Margaret Qualley lately. I love Aubrey Plaza. I think she's kind of getting into more like dramatic roles that are outside of like Parks and Rec and things like that that are really gonna differentiate her from her what she's known for most. And I think that's what's really gonna help her grow. And I really like her like in dramatic roles. Um, there's quite a few actors and directors that I like.
Matthew Lillard is good in a movie called The Descendants with George Clooney, but
Yeah.
he is a good actor. Doesn't get enough credit. Um, Aubrey Plaza, I think, is incredible. Versatile. Doesn't get much recognition on that, but she is. She did a comedy, a coming of age like sex comedy called The To Do List,
Oh, I haven't
and
seen that one.
yeah, I saw it in theaters, and I'm like, man, this movie would have done so much better had it came out just a few years later.
Yeah.
Um, so hard to find, and nobody's really seen it. But that's good. David Lynch, I'm kind of new. I've only seen two of his movies, and imagine that I had done this podcast, and in 2017, I don't even know who the fuck he was.
Oh shit.
Yeah, imagine that. I'm like, come on to film Twitter because I'm never gonna call it X, and you're
Yeah,
learning Agnes Varda, Akira Kurosawa, Federico Fellini. Am I saying that right? I don't know if
I
that's.
think so.
And then there's one more that I was gonna mention, but yeah, there's a lot. And then speaking of David Lynch, I'm gonna give you this question because I thought this would be interesting. I'm
Okay.
gonna give you four directors. You got to rank them, one being your favorite, and so on and so on and so
Oh
on.
no.
I'm assuming you're gonna like all four, but I'd be curious to know
Um,
based off of your preference. And these are the four directors. Which one? I'll rank them in favorites of one,
oh
two, three.
no.
Stanley Kubrick, Agnes Varda, Akira Kurosawa,
I
and
hate you.
David Lynch.
I hate you so much. Okay. I hate you so much. And these are all four that I've like watched a good chunk of their stuff. Okay. Um fuck. Am I really gonna put Agnes Ford at like third? That's crazy. Okay. Um Probably David Lynch at the top. Stanley Kubrick in second. Agnes Varda third. Kurosawa fourth. And the only reason I'm putting Kurosawa fourth is because I have not seen enough of his films. I'm working through his filmography right now. Like him and Varda are the two that I'm working through like actually actively working through the most, because I want to. Like with Kurosawa, I think I've only seen High and Low. Like actually directed by him, I think I've only seen High and Low. I have Seven Samurai. Seven Samurai was one of the first Criterions I picked up, like within the first 5 that I picked up, and I still haven't watched it. And then like there's a bunch that are on my Criterion Challenge list that I've got to do for this year before the end of the year. They're mostly Kurosawa. I tried to curate as many Kurosawa as I could. I was supposed to do a podcast this weekend with someone tomorrow, or no, last Sunday with someone with Yojimbo, and that fell through. So that would have been like my second one that I've seen of Kurosawa. So that's the only reason I would put him last. But yeah, I think it would be David Lynch, Kubrick, Varda, and Kurosawa in that order.
It's a tough question because
It
if
is.
I had to rank them, Stanley Kubrick goes 1 because I've seen his movies the most. It's gonna get tough here, but I like the 2 David Lynch movies I saw, so I go number 2 because I'm always like, "What the fuck is going on?" But
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm willing to stay in this confusion. 3, Akira Kurosawa. Seven Samurai was my first watch of this year, and that was my first time seeing it. Amazing movie. Agnes Varda goes only 4 because I've only seen Les Bonheur, and I'm like
Oh,
you,
you
like
still haven't seen Cleo, right?
no,
Yeah,
no,
you got to. Yeah, you got
yeah.
to.
It's tough, right? To do that, to rank 4 iconic movie directors who have shaped cinema in a way that is still highly influential today. And I can confirm to you that in 2017, I only knew one of those directors. I have changed. Have you in the last 5 years or 10 years, do you think your movie taste has dramatically changed?
Brother, in the past 1, like it's dramatically changed to where at first I wasn't really watching things that would be um like I wouldn't go out of my comfort zone. I would stay in my comfort zone of the things that I liked because I wanted to feel comfortable because I it was in a state of uncomfortability. And I just didn't want to be that way. Um so I would stay with the movies that I knew that would make me feel good and the shows that I knew that would make me feel good because I was in a constant state of depression. But I started to realize that once I started to lean into movies that were actually more on that side of things, it kind of helped because it made me kind of think about my own life and other things going on around me that made me kind of question my own depression and all these other things and how I view myself and stuff like that. So that was only within the past year, that year and a half maybe. Probably no, almost 2 years, that I've started to do that. So yeah, this resurgence of the style of movies that I've seen has only come like very recently. Very
Um,
recently.
Similar. I mean, I came back on Twitter in 2024. I was also depressed, and I learned very quickly. I was very humbled by people's, I started following accounts and they're talking about the directors we just mentioned, and I'm like, I don't know who that is, and then yeah, and then
Same.
Seth Vargas of Movie Friends. I had watched Videodrome, and he did a Spaces, which he kind of introduced me to that, and a bunch of people came in because he wanted to talk about my thoughts on it. And when those people came in and started talking about movies like Tam Popo and John Waters was mentioned, who I was not familiar with either, I went quiet because I was so lost, and I was just like, I gotta step my game up because like they're talking about things I had never heard of, and it can be intimidating, for some people. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? That just means I haven't got there yet on my film journey. And I would say the same thing for you. Like being in your
Mhm.
comfort zone, not a bad thing, but it can be at times. But your willingness to explore has opened your world view on movies, and you start realizing like I love the more the movies that have more weight. But there's nothing wrong with liking movies that don't have as much weight. They're just a good old time because we need a diverse type of, like a whole group of different types of movies because that's how we are in life. We're very different. All of us, sometimes we need to laugh, we need to cry, we need perspective, we need to think about the future or reflect in the past. And so, I applaud you for expanding your film journey. I mean, because I like musicals
Yeah.
and never did really. I would watch. I've seen them, and I'm like, okay. But I was with somebody for 14 years on and off in one period. Our first date was 2009's Nine with Daniel Day Lewis.
Nice.
What it is, she chose it. I go into it. It was okay for a Daniel Day Lewis movie. I knew who he was, and but I didn't dislike the movie. And she was huge in the musical, so that encounter and eventual relationship opened the door for me with musicals.
Mhm.
And now I will champion musicals. I get it; it's not for everybody, but experiencing musicals should be something everyone should do because not all of them are just busting out doing a song like constantly. Like you look at Hamilton, you
Mhm.
know, West Side Story. There's a lot, even Wicked. I was so jacked up for Wicked because the whole time we were dating, she was so excited for that movie. It's been in development for so long,
Forever.
and we didn't even make it as a couple to
Yeah.
Wicked, but we survived enough to make it to two avatars. Put it that
Yeah,
way, like
yeah.
that's a long um time. But I think that most people like were in a spot that you're in. They want comfort. I have people I talk to all the time, friends, like I don't want to watch foreign movies. I don't want to do it with subtitles. I don't want to watch this movie because it's like I'm not really into the Oscar movies, and I'm like, why not? Because what if you take a leap of faith? Inception over here. You never know if you might walk out and be like, oh, I really dug that, and you don't have to be as deep in the movies as you and I, but
Yeah.
you could be like, hey, you know, I might watch another one. And I hope that movies like Sinners or Sentimental Value or Hamnet will open the door for people. These are just the latest movies, but I hope that those movies that have got a lot of praise will open people to check out more movies. Like, let me go see what Ryan Coogler is about. Let me go see Fruitvale Station, Chloe Zhao's Nomadland, and then what? I don't. I'm trying to think of a movie from the director of Sentimental. Worst Person in the World. I think that's one of. I haven't seen it, but I think that's one of
Yeah,
his
because
movies.
it's what? Joaquin am I saying is it Trier who
Trier,
did
I
that?
think.
Yeah. I haven't seen Cinema Noir
Yeah.
yet, so that's the only reason I was like, "Oh,
Okay, okay, yeah. So
I haven't seen it
right there, and you did list some directors and stuff that I'm also a fan of here. I look how old school I am. I have this print.
yet."
I don't want my computer to freeze. So let me see here. Here we go. This is one I know the answer to, but you do collect physical media.
I do know, yeah.
How's that collection looking? Like, how many do you think you have roughly?
Uh, I'm no Pat Brennan, but um I've got about 40-ish, a little over 40 Criterions. Um, and then I've got a smattering of, like, Arrow Video stuff. I've really been getting as many 4Ks as I can, because I just want the best looking the best quality of movies. So, like, uh, Back to the Future, Lord of the Rings, a lot of the movies that I really love, I try to get the 4K for. Um, but I try to get as much as I can. My problem is that I don't have a lot of space. So I've got to figure out a way to fix that. Um, so I'm having to, like, put things and, like, stack them up, because I just don't have space for everything. But I've been collecting physical media for a little while now. Um, not like avidly collecting, but I'll like buy, things for a while. But it wasn't until like this past year that I really like avidly collected because I started to notice that like stuff streaming wise was just disappearing. Like even if you buy it, it'll just disappear because you just bought the rights to be able to watch it. You didn't buy it to own it. Um, and the first time I got a sign of that was for video games on PlayStation. They sent out like a massive thing
Yeah.
where they were like, "Hey, by the way, there's nothing we can do about this. We just no longer have the rights to the games. So if you lose out on some of the games that you've purchased, this is why." Um, and that was like, I was like, "Wait, they can do that?" And then I started looking into it more, and then like Amazon was really bad about it, and I was like, "Okay." So I was like, "Well, I guess the only way that I can fucking own something is if I have it in my hand." So that's what sparked it, and I was like, "Alright, if I wanna watch something, even if I've never seen it for the first time," I've gone and bought so many blind buys that I've ended up liking, especially for Criterion. Like, when it comes to Criterion, I don't think I've missed once, where I've been like, "Hell yeah, I actually like that for X, Y, or Z reason." Um, but yeah, I've been collecting for, like, a year-ish, year and a half.
All
Like,
right. Good.
avidly collecting for a year and a half.
It's good. It's
Yeah,
good. And also, blind buys are funny because like, a lot of people don't like to do that because they want to know for sure if they're going to like the movie.
yeah,
But same person will spend $20 to rent a brand new movie at home, and I'm like, it's kind of the same thing. The only difference is you could maybe sell it or trade it into a secondhand store. But I've been collecting for many years. I have not run out of room because I went through a phase when I first brought this podcast back. I was really big in the Funko. Like,
mhm,
I loved it. I made content over like hundreds of videos. I would travel and like I really love Funko. There's people I know that you've probably heard, like, I love Funko, but they love the thrill of the value of certain pops. I
yeah,
loved the Funko. I would go to the HQ in Washington and I would go to cons. So I sold a lot of my DVDs. I had over 1,000 and I would get rid of them for credit. Crazy. Yeah, 100%. Because I said I gaslit my own self into being like, you'll just get the Blu-rays. Don't
yeah,
worry.
yeah,
Did not get the Blu-rays. And now I've been going crazy with it. But my dad actually got me into collecting because when we were younger, he would go to yard sales and he wouldn't even look at the movies. He would just buy every VHS tape. So my whole house had shelves. But the only thing I didn't like about his buying was he would just buy doubles of everything. And I was like, don't you want to at least go through it? You know,
I've
like,
I've done that so many times with comics, dude, and I didn't even realize it until I got back and, like, would, like, put it in my little database app, and I was like, "Fuck." I won't be surprised if I do that with, movies here soon. I'll probably be hitting doubles here soon.
wow, I've done it a
Not
few
on
times. But see,
purpose.
my dad knew he had the doubles. And I'd be like,
No.
yo, as a kid, like, what are you doing? Do we need the full Monty twice? We haven't even watched it once. Like, I don't even know what that movie is. I was just like, what? Like, and so, you know, the difference with me is I will blind buy a lot like you, especially Criterion. I didn't even know about Criterion until 2024. I didn't know
Yeah,
about Letterbox
yeah,
till 2023.
yeah.
And I'm a little older than you, and I'm like, what was I doing? Because I always was like, where are the movie fans? I need more movie fans. All I had was Ray Ray, the first guest on the first episode of the reboot. I always have to say that as if
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is as if anybody knows it's a reboot. But yeah, physical media is important, and it's good that you're collecting. I'm collecting because you're right. I mean, if you rely on streaming, it's only going to keep going up in price. It's going to rotate the movies. And why not own that one movie or movies that you really love that you're like, every time I watch it, it feels like the first time I saw it. So that concludes the introduction. And now it's movie review time. Drugstore Cowboy. Now I'm going to give these movie facts first, and I'm going to ask you a question. But this is part of a movie series I'm doing called Addiction Ain't No Joke, which I know is a double negative. Someone did point that out to me, and I was like, it's part of the thing. But I don't know about you. I find addiction movies fascinating, interesting. It opens my mind to the um, eyes of somebody who's an addict, and it's always something chaotic or crazy in their lives to get whatever it takes to feed their addiction. And the part that I'm most intrigued by is, will they rise above it or will they succumb to it? So here are the movie facts for Drugstore Cowboy. I'm old school. If I didn't show this earlier, I have to go like this. Released in 1989. I've never even heard this movie till last year, to be honest. From director Gus Van Sant, who co-wrote it with Daniel Yost. I don't know if you're familiar with this. They based a story on a book by James Fogle, who had the same name for the title, and he
Hmm.
was a former drug addict who robbed drugstores. And
Oh,
it stars Matt Dillon, Kelly Lynch, Heather Graham, James Remar, James LaGrosse, and William S. Burroughs. The synopsis of this film is: a group of addicts rob drugstores for pharmaceutical drugs while trying to escape law enforcement and whatever comes their way. Now I'm going to look over here because if you haven't seen Drugstore Cowboy, I would think you might wanna watch it because then you just listen to Drake and I talk about it, and you're like, "I don't know anything that's going on." So, this is the time right now where you can just hit pause, press play on Drugstore Cowboy, finish it up, and then come back, or don't, and you just get to hear us talk about it. And are you ready?
yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk movies. Why did you pick it from the list that I gave you?
Um, there was a massive list of movies that I had not seen. There was probably like 2 or 3 that I had seen in that list that you gave me. I to be honest, I wasn't even paying attention to the theme of the actual month. I think you actually said it in the thing, and I just wasn't paying attention. I was just like, "Oh, movie, pick movie." Um, but yeah, I hadn't seen Drugstore Cowboy, but it's kind of, I wouldn't say made the rounds, but like people have been talking about it at least on film Twitter, and I heard about it last year, year before, something like that. I've seen a couple people pull it from the Criterion Closet, um, different directors, actors, writers, whoever, saying that it's a very good movie. And so I had my eye on it for a while. I just never actually seen it myself. And you put that in a list, and I was like, hey, this is a perfect opportunity. I haven't watched it yet. So this is a productive opportunity to watch the movie and not feel like I'm just, you know, spending the day watching a movie to no avail. So let me watch it now. And I was like, perfect, this will be great. Um, and yeah, that's kind of how that's really the only reason I selected it. I didn't realize there was an addiction movie until I got like, I don't know, 5 minutes in, and I was like, okay, I'm in for a ride.
Yeah, I give this list and I try to give as many movies as possible because I don't know. I've had some people who said they've seen none of the movies on the list, and some of them are just not interested. So I figured if I gave you roughly close to 20, I'm like, you're gonna find one, right? Most people are
Yeah.
gonna find one. And then sometimes I tell people what the theme is, and then sometimes I don't. Just seeing if anybody catches it. And let me tell you, nobody's caught it really. Maybe one person that's gonna come on. Um, but yeah, I saw it last year. Yeah, you just like you, I saw people pull it from the closet, and I'm like, "Oh, there's a drugstore cowboy, there's a midnight cowboy, there's an urban cowboy." There's a lot of movies with cowboys, and somebody
Yeah.
in movie friends Discord said that too, and that made me laugh. But you saw Drugstore Cowboy, so what were your first impressions of the movie after it ended?
I was like, damn, okay, I like that a lot more than I thought I was going to. Um, I've dealt with addiction before. I'm an alcoholic. I've been sober for a year and some change. Um, so I kind of know like where they're coming from with a lot of the like. I wouldn't go as far as like robbing fucking drugstores or anything, but you come up with these schemes in your head of like how to hide the things that you're addicted to, or you know how to get those things, and just feeling that chase of like, oh yeah, I need it. um and I got that impression in the fact that they know what they were talking about, uh, on a personal level, pretty quickly. Like, I figured that out, within the first, like, 10 minutes that they knew exactly what it was like to be in that mindset. I didn't know that the guy who wrote it initially was an addict himself, but now that you tell me that, after seeing the movie, it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense that he was an addict. Because a lot of the things that they did, a lot of the justifications that they had were very addict-like. Um, and yeah.
I don't ask my guests about the addiction thing. I was
Yeah.
going to, but you never know because I have another guest that may come on who said that they struggle with something as well. So I've never had those type of addictions. I've had addictions where I went through phases where I love to buy things. I'm currently physical media I'm doing right now, but I actually really love it.
No.
But I went through a jersey phase. I
Okay.
was in the basketball jerseys. I love the old school ones. Hats, sports hats. I was into that. Funko. Um, Comics but most of the time it just got expensive or like, okay, enough. Like, do you need 15 Houston Rocket hats? And I'm like, I need 16 Houston Rocket hats. There's a chocolate style hat that I would like. But alcoholism I do have experience with because I had a um ex-girlfriend, her sibling struggle with it mightily. Not even, and I'm talking about like not even of legal age to drink, and had already had issues. So I went to the meetings with him. I saw him have those episodes at work, and so these are things I would never have experienced um, prior to this relationship, but it's devastating. So when I see Drugstore Cowboy, which is set like in 1971, I think Portland, Oregon,
Yeah.
a different time, seeing this movie, it's kind of like a raw, unfiltered look into this world because it doesn't glamorize it. It's just telling you this is how it is. It's not pretty. It's not exciting if you're an audience member who doesn't agree with it. I mean, for them, they had a time of their lives, but I found it to be, I was just completely fascinated because I've seen a lot of drug movies, but nothing of this caliber of pharmaceutical drugs, like staging things to get the drugs and then, like not even being precise in what they're looking for, you
Yeah.
know? And I think Gus Van Sant did a really I was really impressed because like I don't think I've seen many of his movies, sadly. I think I've seen Good Will Hunting, obviously. And if there's another movie I
Dead
think I
Man's
saw.
Liar, probably?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's
That's
funny.
Gus Van Sant.
I just saw that. Yeah, that was good. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, like, I've yet to watch a movie of his I didn't like. So I saw this last year for the first time, and I remember being like, "Oh my." You think it's a movie about addiction, which it is, and then it comes with some turbulent events that I was kind of, like, shocked about that we're gonna get into. But with, Drugstore Cowboy, were there any particular highlights for you within the movie? Like, anything that you were like, "I really like that."
I mean, the acting overall was very good. Um, Matt Dillon, I was like, "Oh, shit." Like, okay, yeah. Like, I feel like I know who this is. Um, he felt like a singular character. He didn't feel like an actor playing a character, if that makes sense. Um, he felt like a real person, which is great because that's what you need for stories that are kind of this heavy. Um, I thought that everything was done very well. I don't think anything necessarily it felt like a cohesive unit. Nothing necessarily stood out to the point of like, "Oh, you know, this bothered me," or something of that matter. It was more like, "Oh, this is a good depiction of addiction." Like, this is a very grounded depiction of addiction. Yes, it's a little, like, crazy in the events that ensue, but it is very plausible. It doesn't feel like something that is just way out there. Like, it feels like somebody obviously did this.
Mhm. I mean, It seems like the '70s, man, you could pull some crazy things to get your addiction at that time because there's not nobody has a cell phone. Um, Sometimes I didn't see much security,
Yeah.
people are leaving things open. It's a different time because in 2026, yeah, you're not doing that. The only thing you have to worry about is somebody trying to be a hero if you were to get caught.
Yeah.
I've worked in loss prevention, and the amount of times that people wanna be heroes, and I'm like, "Don't do that.
Yeah.
That's a liability." I was like they're like, "It's your job. You gotta tackle them." I was like, "I'm not allowed to do anything to these people. I can just be like, "Oh, the you missed the checkout stand. It's right out there." Like, you can't accuse them of stealing, you
Yeah.
know? And one guy told me he had a car probably close to $1,000 worth. He said, I was like, "Checkout stand's right over there, sir." And he said, "Don't make me shoot you for this." And
Yeah.
I was like, "Alright," you know? And then, like, everybody called me, the managers, my superiors are like, "Do I need to get counseling?" I'm like, "I'm good." I just was like, I'm not dying for clothes." Like, you know
Yeah.
what I
I'm
mean?
not dying for $15 an hour. It's not worth
Oh,
it.
stab me, they're gonna wait for me after work, and I'm just like, "No, I'm good." But, yeah, the highlights for me, I'm sure you might have liked this too, was, like, it happened the first time it happens is when Matt they had just did they did, like, a little heist at a drugstore where they set up this thing where somebody has a seizure and there's 4 people involved, and one of them goes and gets the drugs while everybody's kind of occupying the, pharmacist. But when they get the drugs, he takes the drugs in the car, and Gus Van Sant does this thing where, like, Matt Dillon's talking to you about what he's experiencing, like, on drugs, and while it's happening, they kinda blur in, like, objects, and it's kinda, like, flying, and I was just like, "That's pretty cool how he did it," because I never thought of, like, getting high like that. Because like, I mean, as far as I've done drugs, I've had a little bit of one of my I was over here about to say a little bit, I'm lying, I had a lot of weed back in the day, you know, that's as far as I went,
Yeah.
nothing extravagant, but to hear him talk about, like, his high, and I think it's a really good visual for a lot of us who have never done drugs to see what he's kinda going through, but that kinda recurs again when he's thinking too, you'll see him objects are kinda, like, moving in the air, and that was a good highlight. The way they did their heist, I always thought was
Yeah.
fascinating because Bob, I think that's his name, right? Yeah, I think his name is Bob,
Yeah, Bob.
character. He's really smart.
Mhm.
He's really good with attention to detail, and you just kinda wonder, like, if you weren't on drugs, what you could be doing with these tools. Because he's very smart, he's a born leader, I love the heist, and then what's another highlight? There was the one scene that we're gonna talk about later where there's a lot of tension, and you have to do this precise or everything goes to shit,
Yeah.
but those were the highlights, and you did kinda mention, I think, earlier, because I usually ask, like, was there anything you didn't like? But I think you said there wasn't really anything really, right, that you didn't care for?
No. There wasn't anything that yeah, that stood out to me that kinda made me go, "Eh." Like, I thought it was just a really good movie. Um, I it was one of those that I gave 5 stars on Letterboxd, and, like, I thought it was just a good movie. Like, I didn't I thought it was great.
I'm with you. The reason why I asked this question is because as you've done a podcast too, and you're just talking with people with film, it's okay not to find anything wrong with a movie. I
Yeah.
don't know why people are actively looking for something in a movie that's wrong. Like, because when you say, like, "There's nothing bothers you," you're like people will be like, "That's because you like everything." And it's like, that's not really true. It's just if there was something that really bothered me from enjoying this fully, I'll point it out. So that I just
Yeah.
wanted to bring that up because I was curious if it's like if there's anything that you didn't like. Now with Gus Van Sant, what did you think of him as not only a director of this movie, but also as a co-writer of Drugstore Cowboy?
I don't know what else he's written. Um, I don't think he co-wrote. No, he didn't co-write, Good Will Hunting, I know that, but I don't know about Dead Man's Wire, whether or not he co-wrote that. Um, I had no idea that he co-wrote it until you said something. Um, I've liked the movies that he's directed. Like Good Will Hunting. Good Will Hunting is one of my favorite movies. Dead Man's Wire, I really enjoyed. Um, what was it,
Yeah.
earlier this year? Last year?
Yeah, it
Something like
was
that?
very good. Very good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I don't know much about his writing, so I don't know. I can't really put it anywhere in like a lineup of like what I think of the rest of the things that he's done. Um, but as far as like Gus Van Sant movies, as far as directed movies, I think that it was a Gus Van Sant movie. Like it's
Mhm.
what I go to expect once I find out that it's a Gus Van Sant movie. Because once I saw that at the beginning of, or like whenever I clicked on it on the Criterion channel, I was like, okay, I'm in for a good time. Like I didn't I I was like, I at least will somewhat like this movie. I didn't know how much I was gonna like the movie, but before playing it. But prior to watching it, I was like, okay, at least I know I'm in for a good time or at least a good film.
I'm kinda in the same boat, like, I haven't seen enough of his work, but if this is what he can do, I totally need to go through because I know he has others in the Criterion Collection that I haven't seen, but I'm just pretty impressed with this movie because it's very different from addiction-based movies that we've seen before, it's very different. But you know what's funny is I have to ask you this, when I saw the trailer for Dead Man's Wire,
Mhm.
they kept saying in the trailer, "Legendary director Gus Van Sant," and I think that he is a legend, but when they're selling this to the general audience, I was thinking to myself, if I remember correctly, they say from legendary director Gus Van Sant, but they don't really say any movies that he's
Yeah,
been a part of, and I'm thinking to
yeah,
myself, are general audiences going to look at his name and be like, Good Will Hunting, you know, Drugstore Cowboy. I think I was just curious, do you think he's a legend? And do you think the marketing should at least in that other movie, Dead Man's Wire, should have put what movies he was in? I don't know why that bothered
yeah.
me.
Well, I think something like Dead Man's Wire is not necessarily like the marketing for that movie is not going to appeal to general audiences. I think something like Dead Man's Wire is really just going to apply to those who are willing to go out to go watch a good story and to go watch a Gus Van Sant movie. Um, Folks like us who have seen Gus Van Sant movies or have seen Good Will Hunting. Now, granted, I do believe that they should have put, from legendary director Gus Van Sant, who directed, Good Will Hunting, Drugstore Cowboy, stuff like that, in the marketing. But, there's people like us who see it and go, oh, yeah, I'm going to go see that. Now, granted, most of us were probably going to see it anyways, just based on the concept because it was a real life story that really happened. And they just made it into a movie. But yeah, if you're gonna put Gus Van Sant's name on it, one, he is legendary. Two, you should at least list the director of Good Will Hunting, Gus Van Sant, at least do that, so that general audiences who would only really know him from Good Will Hunting will at least go like, "Oh, I've liked that before. I'm sure that I will enjoy this as well." I think more people will know him from Good Will Hunting than they will from like Drugstore Cowboy or um, Dead Man's Wire in the next couple of years. But yeah, I think they should have at least done that.
Because he did Milk too, which was
Oh yeah,
Sean
he
Penn.
did do Milk.
Yeah,
I
second
have
Oscar.
seen Milk.
Okay, I have to see it. I hear it's very good. But yeah, it just made me laugh because I see that trailer, before it was coming out, and I'm
Yeah,
like, that's strange because when they do Ridley Scott, there's like two s- paragraphs of what he's done. Scorsese has the same thing, but they only list the last like 5 movies he's done, and I'm
yeah.
just like, what is happening here? Like
Well,
Gus Van Sant deserves a little bit more than being like he's legendary, but Good Will Hunting will get people. People like that movie.
um, so I think the whole reason that they do that for people like Scorsese, for Ridley Scott, for list like out the actual movies is due to the fact that they've actually have IP. If you look at Gus Van Sant's like franchise IP, if you look at Gus Van Sant's movies, he doesn't really have like a franchise under his belt uh like Spielberg and like Ridley Scott does have franchise IP, obviously. Like he's got Gladiator and he's got Alien. So like you're trying to pull people in because they know Gladiator. They know Alien. Like it is so much in the zeitgeist when it comes to our movie going culture that that's immediately going to draw you in. You're going to see those two things, you're just automatically there. Things like Good Will Hunting may not do that for people, but it'll at least kind of plant a seed in them to be like, oh yeah, I've seen that before. I like that. But I think that's why they do it so much with these bigger guys because they've been around and have impacted the culture so much that those would be obvious like little triggers in someone's head to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go check that out.
True. Also, I think it's because they put out more movies. I mean, Ridley Scott puts out like 1 or 2 a year, and,
Yeah,
I love Ridley Scott, I love Martin Scorsese, and I think, Gus Van Sant is a legend. I just wanna know what was going through the marketing's team when I'm like, you can't just throw legend out little, little bit of, info, and if you wanna
yeah,
ask me, I prefer Good Will Hunting 2 than, Gladiator 2. I just wanted to see if you caught that joke.
yeah. I did. Yeah, it's a uh, oh shit, Strike Back joke.
Yeah,
There we go.
James
Jesus
Bob.
Christ.
He
I
was
was
in
like,
that, right? He does make that cameo in that, right? If I'm correct. He's
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
that. Yeah, that's so good. It just makes me laugh because you were not expecting that question. Like, do you think he's legendary? Like, and you're watch that trailer and just be like, what's going on through there? But let's see here. So you did talk about performances. Matt Dillon, you did mention. I got
mhm,
onto Matt Dillon in the '90s, right? There's something about Mary, and then he did a couple things in the 2000s. He reminds me of John Cusack. I
yeah.
didn't give him enough respect. I'm not a huge John Cusack fan or Matt Dillon, to be honest. And I think it's because their best work was in the '80s. So when I see Drugstore Cowboy, I'm like, "Oh, this dude was special." I mean, he is a good actor overall, but, like, I wonder if he like, if I saw Drugstore Cowboy in '89, I would've been like, "This dude's gonna be big because he's really good." Because I mean, a lot of people play drug addicts, right? But it's
Yeah,
really hard to play a very convincing one,
yeah.
where like you said, where it's acting. So, were there any other performances outside of, Matt Dillon's Bob that you were a fan of?
Lynch, uh, as Diane. She was Diane, right? Yeah, she played Diane.
Yes.
Yeah, she was great as Diane. She played that character very well as far as like um the woman who just couldn't leave the chaos. Like she wanted to be in the chaos because she was comfortable in it, just like Bob was, just like all addicts are. That's why they continue to be addicts, is because they get comfortable in the chaos. Um, I had that same problem, which is why I was stuck in that rut for so long. Um, but she played that character very well, which is why she jumped from Bob to whatever the other you know drug addict was, because she was just
Oh,
stuck in that. She could have easily broken off and just been, you know, a person who is not involved in drugs and, could have had a much bigger life, outside of drugs. Um, but she just kind of tagged along to wherever the chaos went because that's all she knew. And she did that very well.
she seemed like in the group, she seemed like the only one that could have had a 9 to 5, the way she was
Oh,
acting,
easy.
but she wasn't ever fully as strung out as, like, Bob or Rick.
Well,
Nadine wasn't really as much either, like, the women were not as, they weren't as strung out, they were kinda like, "Yeah, I like drugs, let's do this," but, like,
well,
Bob
that's the
was
thing
like
about
yeah.
addicting, right? Like they're not. You can have some high functioning addicts. You'll never know. You'll never know that they're addicts. But that's because they are addicts and they have done it for so long that they can not only partake in the drugs and the drinks of choice, but also get up and work their 9 to 5 the next day. I mean, it happens all the time. But which is why that was so for me, that was so compelling because I was like, "Oh, yeah, I've heard about these people. I've been in meetings with these people. Like, I know that they're real." That's why I was so like, "Oh, yeah, this is a great movie because it does that very well."
It does. Actually, I didn't know about functional
Yeah,
ad uh,
functioning.
high
Yeah.
functioning alcoholism was something I also experienced in a relationship, and I just remember not with the person I was with, but like their family, and I remember being like it was just like they don't think they have a problem, and you're like, I think you do, but I understand that they would rationalize it like, well, if I'm able to do what I'm supposed to do and no issues or there's no disruption in my life, then I guess I'm
Yeah.
good.
That's
You know what I
fine.
mean?
Yeah.
Which is, in Drugstore Cowboy, I don't know about you, but I was thinking through this. I was like, being a drug addict in the 70s, it ain't so bad compared to now because they had nice houses,
Yeah.
apartments, they had everything. Like they had car, and I'm like, rent must have been so cheap. Gas, because like in my mind, this is what I'm thinking about as they're doing all this stuff in the movie. How can they afford all this? But then I'm like, you look at the prices, right? It's like so cheap. Like,
But I think
you
the
know,
buying power was the same though. That's what's so funny is like the buying power of the dollar was the same. So it's not like, you know, uh they're still making like 7.50 an hour and still paying what would be the equivalent of making 15 to $16 an hour and then having, an apartment for $2,400 a month or whatever. I mean, it's basically the same at this point.
it is. It's just way cheaper. It just made me laugh
Yeah.
because you said 750. Because when I started at the movie theater, I had mentioned this in the first episode. I think we were making like 725,
Yeah.
715. And I'm like, if they were making that same amount in the 70s, I'm losing my mind because I'm like, I'm working just as hard. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But I did like Kelly Lynch, James Remar, the cop. I've always liked him because I've seen him in many things. Um, Heather Graham, very good. Because I looked her up. She was like 18 when she did this, I think, because she's a
Makes sense.
1970. She was born, and I thought she was really good in this. And then William S. Burroughs, who I instantly recognized because if I'm correct, he's an author. He did the movie Queer was based on his book, right?
I think
I
so. Let me double
because
check.
I guess yeah, I guess
I heard that. I may be
he,
wrong, but
I saw his name and I'm like, why does that name sound so familiar? And I'm like, I think that's who Daniel Craig played.
oh
In
yeah, it's got to be. Oh, it's got
okay,
to
yeah, I
be
think so.
because he kind of looks like him. Like Daniel Craig kind of looks
Oh,
like. Oh yeah, yeah. He wrote it in 1985.
oh,
He wrote it in
okay.
1985.
Alright.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was really good in it too. I don't know if he's ever done much acting, but he was pretty good for his little part.
yeah.
Now with Drugstore Cowboy, did this film live up to the expectation you had? Because you were like, I'll watch someone with Gus Van Sant. I have yet to be disappointed.
I mean, I try not to go into a movie with any expectations. I try to go in as blind as possible. Um, the only expectation that I had after seeing Gus Van Sant's name is like, I'm gonna enjoy this, and it met that expectation. I enjoyed it. It didn't necessarily exceed it, but it at least made me go, "Oh yeah, I enjoyed the heck out of this movie." Um, it is a to me, it is a great Gus Van Sant movie. So I didn't have too many expectations, but of the expectations that I did have, it it did pretty well.
Did you like any of the characters?
I mean, yeah, I I saw little bits of myself in a lot of the characters. Um, Matt Dillon's in particular because he had that belief of like, oh yeah, I'm good. Which again, with the alcoholism uh, that I had, like I felt that way too. Like I never felt like I knew that I should probably stop, but I kept finding a justification for why I wouldn't. I'm still going to work, still doing this, I'm still making money, but obviously I wasn't. I was staying stagnant, but I was still finding justifications of being like, "Oh, yeah, it's fine, blah, blah, blah." Like,
Well, for me, I like Bob. I can see myself in the sense of planning things. I
yeah,
do know how to maneuver to get out of situations. I can lead when I need to. I guess I like Bob, and then at times I don't like Bob
yeah,
because I never understood his. I just didn't understand the whole thing with Nadine because I get it, your boy's girl, and we've all been through there. We don't like some of our friends, significant others, but you know what, man? She put in the work when she was asked to, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on. The only time she screwed up, because I liked her character too. The only time I thought she screwed up was when she did the math correctly when Bob was trying to screw over that other guy.
yeah,
I
yeah,
guess,
yeah,
but I did like Diane because well, I did like Diane because I thought she was loyal because they had, when I found out they're married, I'm like, oh wow, you gotta not only you have an addiction, you got a ride or die that's willing to go with you on this journey. I
until
did
she
like the
wasn't.
yeah, until she wasn't, yeah. And then I'm like, I don't know if but it's funny though, and we're gonna bring this up in a little bit. It was kind of inevitable what was going to happen between Diane and Rick, considering something dramatic happens that kind of opens up, you know, the ability that they could possibly date.
Yeah,
Something big dramatic happens. But outside of that, William S. Burroughs' character, the father, I thought he was cool. But though I was like, bro, like he clearly wants to go back on drugs.
yeah.
Uh, but let's talk about what that thing I alluded to was what was like I'll talk about because that's my thing. But for you, what was the craziest situation in this movie for you?
Mm, I mm, it'll probably sound rather mundane, but it's probably the beginning heist, the first heist, where I'm like, "Oh, like, this is the tone that we're setting. Okay." Because then after that, I'm like, "Alright, I already know where this is going. It's obviously gonna build from here," because that's what addicts do. Like, they try to one up their high, whether it be drugs or just this feeling of, like of accomplishment or whatever. Like, it's something that, chasing the dragon kind of concept. Um, I knew that it was gonna build from there. I didn't realize it was gonna build from that particular point where they were just like, "Oh, we're gonna go balls to the walls first, and then just try to escalate as much as we can." Um, so the foundation of the first heist is what made me go, "Oh yeah, that's crazy." Um, it's only gonna get crazier from here.
It's actually a really good opener because it's
Yeah.
so actually executed pretty well from the main characters. As
Mhm.
the pharmacist, I'm like, in my mind, maybe because I have experience in it, but I'm like, something's not right here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But yeah, that opener was really good because it kind of just lets you know what's exactly going to happen, and depending on how you handle that, you might think that might be the most. That's exactly where we're going, but then it goes further. For me, there's two particular things that I felt were the craziest was them coming back from them coming back and discovering Nadine has died, and then putting her. They open a part of the
Attic.
ceiling, put her up there. That's crazy. And then when they went to the hospital, to
Yeah.
goes in the hospital, I'm like, either case is a felony and lifetime in
Yeah.
prison.
Well,
You know,
at that point, they're not even thinking about, like, for the case of Nadine, they're not even thinking about Nadine, her body, her family, whatever. They're just like, "Oh, I wanna protect me," because that's what most addicts do. They're very selfish. Um, and they're like, "I don't care about everyone else and how it affects everyone else. I'm afraid of how it's going to affect me." So, yeah,
I mean,
that
I don't
didn't
know. I
surprise
don't
me at
know about
all.
putting her body up there. I know that's a lot
Yeah,
of work.
it is a lot of
'Cause you
work,
might
but
have to
that's the
bring it
thing
down
is, like,
later. I'm a guy that's like, what are all my options and what am I gonna have to do later if
yeah,
it doesn't go? But you're like, yes, you're right. Like an act, they're not thinking, but
I'm not thinking about that.
put her body up there, what did you think when they put her body up there and then they find out they have to check out because there's a sheriff convention and sheriffs have reserved their
Yeah.
their room?
I was
What
like,
was
"Well,
going
shit."
panicking? I'm panicking. What
Yeah,
about
I
you?
was like, "Well, shit, I gotta find a way to get out of this. I don't know how you're gonna do it." Especially whenever they all started rolling up and he was looking out the window and he was like, "Fuck." He was like, "Hopefully they don't recognize me." Are you do they recognize me? Do you think they will? And then whenever he went to the front office and then walking out, I think I got more anxiety from him walking out of the front office after talking to the sheriffs or to the people in the front office. Whenever he walked out and like saw like I think it was two cop cars roll up, and he kind of just stood there for a second. He was like looking around with the bandage on his head. Like I was like, okay, are they gonna ask him why he's got a bandage on his head? Are they gonna get to that point? Is someone gonna recognize him because he's been robbing these places blind? Um, all around the city and the county and the state. Like I don't know, let's see. And luckily it didn't didn't happen. But that was actually where I got more anxiety from. It wasn't even from them getting the bodies out. It was more like, oh shit, how is he gonna deal with this?
And Matt Dillon really plays it well where he is nervous, but
Yeah.
Bob is really good at getting out of that getting out of tight situations or kind of having to improv a little bit. Yeah, but it was nerve-wracking because I feel like today's law enforcement would have definitely asked him, "Hey, you good? Something, is there something wrong?" But in the
Yeah.
70s, I think they're just like, "We're at a convention. I don't give a damn. This is like kind of like a vacation for us." And also, you know, it's different in that time versus now where people are doing insane things, because like when I lived in Arizona, I would get pulled over all the time, not even driving, walking home from work. I had talked about this in the first, but one time I was hanging out we're hanging out at somebody's house in the front, and police rolled through the neighborhood and tried to get us and pull over. Like, what are you guys doing? I'm like, it's her house. We're all chilling. What are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
what is,
Like
he's
walking?
like, no, we were just chilling outside front of the house, and he was just like, "What are you guys doing? Are you guys, do you guys live here?" And the girl's like, "Yes, I live here. We're just hanging out in the front." This is how suburban this city was, that they had nothing to do. Like they would just
Yeah.
pull you over and be like, and yeah, but like I was having some anxiety. You know what I mean? Um, in the movie with Bob as the main character, was there ever a situation or something going on where you were like, "Stop it, Bob. This is enough. No
Oh,
more."
like yeah, throughout the entire thing. But then again, like, you know, um you don't get to the I mean, I say you don't get to the end, but now granted the end doesn't necessarily end the way that you want it to. You don't get to any sort of arc unless he hits the rock bottom at the top of the exposition, right? So like he's gotta keep going before he hits a wall and is like, all right, maybe I should stop doing this because clearly it's getting me nowhere. Um, because like I said, I had to do the same thing. But um yeah, I was like, eventually he'll figure it out, but I don't know when that's going to be. Like, I don't know what event is going to be like, you know what? I should probably look at this a little bit differently. I'm glad that it was like the time that he went to the convention and sat there and like spiraled. And I think the depiction of anxiety at that time was like decent. Like, I think that was a pretty decent depiction of anxiety. There's not very many um major depictions that I can think of that were really good other than that. And then like I think it was season 2 of Ted Lasso or something like that, where he had that like panic attack outside of the karaoke bar. I think those are like two of the best depictions of anxiety, like having some sort of anxiety attack without it seeming too hokey or too weird whenever it happens on screen.
I his anxiety is good because like we're expecting now in today's movies, right? It'll be a little bit more overblown, like really, like we're expecting some
Yeah, like over
damn
the top.
ridiculous. Yeah, where in this, it's like, yeah, in the 70s they wouldn't be panicking like that. They would be panicking for sure, but it wouldn't be so over top. It'd just be like, we got to play it cool. We got to get through this. But yeah, for me, I would have stopped after the hospital. That would have been enough for me, having to fight off staff, and then jump through a window and be
Yeah.
stuck for a while. That would have been it. And then coming home to Nadine OD'd. I gotta be honest. I mean, Patrick Bateman might be popping in, like, I gotta return some videotapes, and just never come back.
Yeah.
I walk down, and be like, you know what, I'm done doing drugs. But I mean, like you said, I've never been fully addicted like that, so I really wouldn't. I'm basing off how I would handle it. You know what I mean. So, but I want to back up here and talk about a couple things that kind of happened prior to this. But let's talk about hexes. Okay. Now, Bob is very much serious when he discusses hexes that can affect things. For one point, he said up to a month if one of these hexes happen. And one of them was, I believe, having a dog, and the other was putting a hat on the bed. And he said those are both automatic no's.
Yeah, I've never
Now,
heard that before.
no. So before we find out what's going to happen with one of these hexes, what was going through your mind when he's talking about this? Because I was just like, Bob, you're so full of shit. Like,
I thought it was drug brain. I was legit like, oh, that's obviously like someone who's going through something. I didn't even chalk it up to seriousness. I was just like the drugs are obviously getting to his brain. There's something going on here. I don't know necessarily what it is, but there is something going on here. I know my dad, whenever he was dealing with drugs and stuff. Well, I mean, he did until his death, but um, whenever he was dealing with stuff, like I could tell when he was on it because he would have like these, I wouldn't say existential ideas, but like these types of ideas where it's like you're looking at him and you're like, where is this coming from? Like what I this has no base in reality. Um and that was kind of what what's his name was Bob was portraying as
mm,
like a misunderstanding of reality by saying, "Oh, these hexes." Now, granted, there are several like historically, if you look at different cultures, there are going to be different cultures out there that believe in hexes and believe in these things. Um, so there's probably some truth historically in other cultures, but there was like nothing in his story to where it would make sense that he believed that. Like there was
mm,
no like seed planted to be like, oh yeah, he obviously believes in hexes for X, Y, and Z reason.
mm. I chalked it up as him just wanting to be in control, you know, of his situation with his group because he's the leader, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of like Diane and Bob are parents, and Rick and Nadine are just asking for these things. I first was like, all right, Bob, you really just don't like Nadine. We get it.
Yeah.
And then Nadine is an interesting character because she's a young girl. She's gonna challenge authority. She's younger than them. I'm believing. Well, no, she is for sure underage because I think there's a
Oh yeah,
raid.
she has to be.
Yeah, and she ran away, which is another like Rick. What the hell? Um, but yeah, she challenges Bob's authority a lot, and I
Yeah.
get Bob's animosity toward her. But sometimes I felt like he could have prevented it with certain ways of how he handled it, but he just doesn't like her. But she puts
Yeah.
that hat on the bed, and after they did a successful drug run where they got something called Dilaudid, which I had
Yeah. Dotted.
never heard of, which is I guess a stronger opioid. Am I saying that opioid? Why am I struggling to
Opioid.
say that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
No, it'll fuck you up.
More than morphine, they said, and they hide it. But she puts a hat on the thing which is funny. They leave her as if she couldn't just ride in the back of the car with them,
Yeah.
But she says, "I'm gonna put this hat on. I'm gonna prove you wrong." So when she came back and she was OD'd, did a part of you think maybe that hex was real, or is that just pure coincidence?
I mean, that could be pure coincidence. I think if it were to be real, I don't think it would be the event of Nadine actually overdosing that would have cemented that for me. It would have been the ending of the movie with him getting shot that would have cemented that for me. Because to me, hexes, like from what I understand of hexes, hexes aren't immediate, right?
Mm,
They're there over time. Something happens eventually.
Yeah.
Now, like I said earlier, we don't end on the best of endings as far as his life goes. Like like I said, he gets shot at the very end of the movie. That's how the movie ends, and he gets carted off by ambulance. Um, I think him getting shot is as a result of the hex. If the hex is real, that's probably what the end result was of the hat being on the bed, not necessarily her overdose, because it would have been a hex towards him based on her actions. So the hex wouldn't come back on her. I feel like it would come back on him because that was her intention.
I like that because yeah, I did not think of that. Well done, Drake.
I mean,
That's a really
that's
good
just
way.
to me.
But it's a
I
really
may
good
be
way to look
completely
at it.
off.
I saw it as I didn't believe it at all. It just you left a teenager by herself in a hotel room where there's nothing to watch TV, who's an addict, who wants to prove that she can handle the same amount of drugs as them. I just was like, this is pure coincidence. I mean, the hat, it just makes it look like the hex real because like what you brought up is with the ending, which is actually really good, was after this whole event with Nadine, right? Bob's buries her and I believe there's no consequences. No one ever looks for her. That's sad.
Yeah.
Um, but it works for our characters because we're in some ways we're rooting for Bob. I don't know. It's funny how he's not a really good person, but we spend the most time with him, so we're rooting for him when he decides after burying Nadine, he's out.
Yeah.
He's done. He gets his life. He turns his life around. He goes to a methadone program, and he's working a regular job. But you can tell and as somebody who doesn't have to deal with addiction, somebody like yourself who's recovered from it and getting back out and doing just the regular mundane things in the world, we're used to it, right? It's like some days are good, some days are bad. It is what it is. It's like it's just part of life. But Bob, when he's back into this, when he finally gets reintroduced into the world of being normal, mundane, I noticed that it was actually taking a toll on him. Like he did want to change, but man, life was like so mellow that I kind of was waiting to see if he was going to be relapsing.
Yeah.
Uh, and also another thing I wanted to ask you about, did you notice Bob was real into the life, right?
Mhm.
With his addiction. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate his addiction, when he was an
Oh,
addict?
yeah, like 8, 9, easily. I mean, wait. Well, because like I said, he's a high functioning addict, right? So it's hard for me to like kind of put a number on what his addiction was because there are going to be different types of addiction, right? And in different ways that it affects different people based on the way that they, react to these drugs and their addictions. Um, so he could easily be a 7 or an 8 in the way that he is addicted to these drugs, but he could also be a high functioning addict to where he can still get up and move around and do things and not be homeless, not, live under a bridge or have issues with um, being social among people and like not be a zombie basically. Um, so it all depends on the person, really. But I definitely think he was up there because he was constantly trying to find ways to score because that was always on his mind. There was nothing else that was necessarily on his mind other than how do I get my high, which is what addicts do. Like they justify reasons for getting their high. They find ways to get their high. Um, and even after you get out of that constant cycle, when you're still like in the beginning stages of sobriety, you'll have moments where you're like, wait, I could still pull this off. Like if I wanted to, I could go pull this off. Um, so I definitely think his addiction was up there.
I agree. I'm thinking about the last episode I did was Uncut Gems, and I
Yeah.
gave Howard a 10.
Oh yeah.
Bob, I think I'm with you on an 8 or 9 because he did remind me of Howard at times where he just wanted to keep going,
Yeah.
but he was also a lot more in control with his life compared to Howard, where Howard was so reckless. I mean, what Bob's doing is reckless, but there's a sense of control. Like when he decides he's done, there's a
Yeah.
limit. There's a limit. and maybe because it has something to do with the hex. But yeah, and well, this will basically will roll into this question about the ending. Now, what did you think of the ending? And then this is kind of like a two-parter. In terms of addiction, before you found out about the ending, did you think he was gonna rise above or succumb to the addiction?
It's a Gus Van Sant movie, so you never really know. Um, I f- I figured it would end on a high note, not necessarily like just kind
Was
of
that a
like
pun?
a huh?
Was that a pun? End on
Not
a high note?
really, not really. Uh, but yeah, I didn't think it was necessarily going to end on something like this typical sunset, end the day out like a normal thing. I figured that because throughout the entire movie, his consequences never really caught up to him. Like, not truly, right? Like, yes, Nadine died and everything, but he acted like it didn't necessarily affect him that much, other than being like, okay, I should probably change something. But as far as like watching the other shoe drop, that never really happened. So I was like, at some point, the other shoe has to drop, right? Um, so the ending and the way that it did, like, that made sense to me. I didn't think he was gonna. I didn't know if I didn't think they were gonna kill him off, but at least be like, "Oh, yes, there are consequences to the other things that happened." Because it is kind of set up with the way that, um, he tells that kid to I can't remember the kid's name, what, David? I wanna say? I may be wrong.
I have
Um,
it. David. Yeah,
and
look at you.
I don't know. Um, the fact that David came back and, like, shot him because of, like, a bad, uh a drug deal gone bad. Like, I didn't think David really had it in him. I knew he wasn't gonna be the one to fucking pull the trigger, but I figured that Muscle was at least gonna show up and be like, "Yo, you're the one that got me into this. You're the one that kept me going into this lifestyle, and now you're also the one that fucked up my ability to make money. So something has to happen. Whether it be he were to come in and at least rough him up a little bit, then sure. But at least something would have happened to tie that up in a bow, or like to wrap it up a little bit. So I did expect that it was going to get wrapped up. I didn't think it was going to get shot and then be sent to the hospital.
I'm an optimistic. I was rooting for Bob because him becoming sober was not as fulfilling as I think he thought. Because Diane ends up with Rick. That might send someone to relapse right then. They're your girl who's been loyal to you since they were like kids. Like she
Yeah,
says that they've been
high
a long
school.
time, but she will not. She's with you until it's like let's get sober. Um, I thought he might rise above it, but then the thing with David that really sets the tone of what a part of this movie is trying to tell you is Bob was hardcore into it, right?
Hmm.
David was naive, but like in any situation where somebody like David is more dangerous because when he gets played after a while and he gets far into that life, whether it's crime or addiction, it's like the movie Bike Riders with Tom Hardy, where there's always going to be somebody coming up that's going to be a lot more ruthless. And so David really was, I think, I guess the hex for Bob in a way because he played that young guy, made him a fool, and look what happened. To David. David's an act too, but he's a
Yeah.
lot more ruthless. And when he says to shoot Bob to the guy, because he's telling the muscle to do it, and
Yeah.
when it happens,
Dave doesn't
that's
have the balls to do that.
no, but Dave is no longer that naive guy. He's willing because next time
Yeah.
he might.
It
It's
depends
getting
on
to a
how far
point.
down he goes.
Yeah, I think he's going all the way in because I mean, Bob was kind of his friend, and that's when things get really tricky. Is when you start wanting to take out people that you were friends or acquaintances with. When he's in the car, I was like, and he talks about going. They're about to give him something to ease the pain. I'm like, he's done. He succumbs. Yeah, it's just going to go back into a cycle now, and it's going to be worse for Bob because if he decides to come back to the group, he's now Rick, and
Yeah.
Rick is Bob. So not only are you going to be getting high, you're going to be watching Diane hooking up with Rick. You're gonna end up with a Nadine.
Yep.
It's just like it's just an endless cycle. It's like when your prescription, you got to go get your prescription after a certain amount of days. He's gonna be doing that every day for the rest of his life. And in many ways, it's brilliant that they went down that route because, as we've talked about with addiction, it's it's very hard to shake, and it's not a guarantee that you're gonna be able to do it. You know what I mean?
It ain't no
And so,
joke.
no, exactly. It's a double negative. It's no joke. And it's funny because I'm going to ask you this question because I wish I had given you these questions ahead of time because it makes it
That's
easier.
fine.
But out of 100%,
Mm.
what would you give Drugstore Cowboy?
I gave it 5 stars on Letterboxd. I'd probably give it out of 100%. If I was like a Rotten Tomatoes critic, 85, 85, 88.
I'm in the 86 range. Yeah, so it's still pretty high. I mean, it's a really good movie. It's just, and I would maybe have given it 5 stars, but then like I don't know if you go through this, but when you start rating things on Letterbox, that's why I don't do as much anymore. You start thinking about other movies like, well, I gave that 5 stars. Would
I
this
I don't
it,
Yeah, I don't do that anymore. I started to. What I do now as far as rating goes is okay, based on like because I go into things so blind, right? If it's something that is not an IP, like isn't Alien, isn't Avengers, isn't Marvel related, anything like that, it's like okay, based on what I see in front of me, based on the description that I read of the movie, because that's typically as far as I go, is like the description. Um, Based on that, and based on watching the movie, how do I feel? Then you're good. And then if you're looking at like IP and stuff, like franchise stuff, how did I feel based on previous you know, previous movies in the IP? But like for Letterbox, like for this, I was like, oh yeah, 5 star. Like I might tweak it and go back to 4.5 because it didn't make me like cry or anything. And usually anything that makes me cry or feels like really deep emotion, I'm like immediate 5 stars. It doesn't matter what that emotion is. It doesn't matter what the context of like the writing, the whatever. If you get something out of me, immediate 5 stars for me because that's what I want. I want that feeling. That's what I come for, right? This is what a lot of us come for is like connection and that feeling of getting something. Um, so like this, I felt something, but I didn't feel like this immediate like pull of being like, oh yeah, I'm crying my eyes out, or I fully connected to that, like all that jazz. That's how I was. Like I was fucking sobbing, and I was like, oh yeah, that's immediate 5 stars, like not even questioning it. So I think that's why I would sit in the 85 to 88 range for me. Is like it didn't like knock it out of the fucking park, but it was a very good movie, and I'd probably watch it again.
actually that answered my question. You would own it on physical media as
Oh
well.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I would own it. I'm probably gonna try to get it on the next sale.
yeah.
Uh, I would definitely rewatch it. But I'm with you. I really love it. But yeah, I just if there's it's just it comes down to me being like it's 4.5 on Letterbox for me. So like 86. So it's a very good movie. It's just yeah, I agree with you. There's some other movies that have made me like Uncut Gems, the one I just did, that really messed me up, and I rated it just a little bit higher. But it's a good movie, and I think we both would recommend that people should check it out. I think it's a gem in the
Yeah.
80s. And I think that about wraps it up. Do you have anything else to say on Drugstore Cowboy?
Not really, other than the fact that people should go see it if you haven't watched it yet. If you get the opportunity to go see it in theaters, I think that's going to be the best way to go see it. If it's re-released for Regal, because I know that they do that, I got to look at May's re-releases, but I don't think um, Drugstore Cowboy would fit in the May re-releases, at least for the theme that they're going for. But if you ever get the chance, like if a a smaller theater is showing it or anything, go watch it in theaters because I think it would be a little bit more enjoyable to go see it in a theater as opposed to at home. But I do think that people should give Drugstore Cowboy a watch for sure.
I agree. If it did show up to theaters, I would go. You know, one thing I wanted to ask you and I forgot.
Yeah.
Did you see the prescription pills used to be where you could see inside of them?
Yeah.
Why did we not go back to that? That is so cool. I was so fascinated by what they look like inside. I was like, why don't we go back to that? I
I
don't
don't
know
know.
why they maybe because they don't want people to know what it looks like. I don't know,
Yeah.
but yeah, Regal bringing back movies is awesome. It's also been a nightmare for my A list because I don't use it as much because I'm constantly watching everything that comes back to theaters. But yeah, that concludes Drugstore Cowboy. And we want to thank Drake. Actually, I think I've never called you Drake until this episode. I've always, in my mind, I just call you Average Film Dude. I don't
Really?
know why.
That's solid.
But yeah, in my mind, if I had you in my content, I would never call you um, Drake. But if people want to follow you, and they should follow you, I recommend following you and where you can find your podcast, the First Watch podcast. Where can they go?
Yeah, just go to my Twitter. The actual handle is Average Film Guy because I couldn't get Average Film Dude. Um, but like if you just search Average Film Dude, you'll see it. Um, yeah, you can go there for Twitter, and pretty much everything else is going to be in a link tree, in the bio, so you'll be able to find it there. But it's on Spotify. It should be on Apple, Amazon, um, well, most of the places that you can find it. I've also got a video version that's on YouTube, so you can go there as well. I'm hoping here soon, if I stop being lazy, that I'll do other content for YouTube as well that is like movie related, but like just reviewing movies and stuff that aren't necessarily the ones that we're doing on the podcast of other people's watch lists. Just for my own, like, just to do whatever. So hopefully I'll do that. But everything that you can find for the podcast and everything will be on that link tree on my Twitter.
And I'll link it in the show notes. By the way, I'm glad that you clarified the Average Film Guy, Average Film Dude. I thought I was having a Mandela effect the way when I looked at it, I was like, wait a minute, have I been saying it wrong?
No, no, no.
And
I
then I
tried to get it
was
and it
like,
didn't work.
yeah.
I tried to get it.
Yeah, your podcast. I've been on it before.
Uh-huh.
I've mentioned. I'll link it. The Le Bonheur, the Agnes Varda movie. It's a really good podcast. But I've been waiting to bring this up to Tim. Is I've been if I was a basketball player, I'm shooting a 33% from the line on your podcast because the first episode we had a technical issue.
Yeah,
Um,
I know, and I'm
no,
pissed because it was
it
a
gets better.
good
It gets better.
it was a good one too. That's the thing that really pisses me off is because like the funny thing is that like I was lobbing up questions and like he was answering them, but you don't see the questions that I was lobbing up, so it doesn't make any fucking sense. So it was a one-sided podcast with no context. And it's horrible. Like I literally still have the video on my computer. And I'm like, this is bad. Like I can't even do anything with this. I tried to fix it at least 6 times. I kid you not, I think I messaged you for like a week and a half. Like, I'm trying to fix this. I'm trying to fix this. This is freaking me out. I called Vikash and I was like, I don't know what to do. And because it was a good episode, I thought it was a great episode. I felt great about it. I was like, hell yeah, this is awesome. And then it was like, oh yeah, it didn't record my side of the recording. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm like, none of this makes sense. No one's gonna understand what questions I asked. They might have a little bit of an idea, but not much. I was just like, this sucks.
I'm giving him a hard time because I was convinced I had given him one of the worst performances of like as a
Mm-mm.
guest. So then we did Le Bonheur, and you had let people know, there's an issue, and I believe you. I just want to say that I gave him such a hard time because when the second episode was coming, he walked me through it because I was so crashing out. But this is the best part is when I was working on bringing my podcast back, I had messaged you in February about just asking things, and you had said to me in the DMs, have I asked you to come back? And I said, no, not yet. And you said, all right, let's do March 21st or 22nd. See, I don't know if you remember this. So I cleared my schedule on both, whatever day it was. You have to go look at these messages. So I
I
cleared the
will have to go
schedule.
back and look at these messages. The
It's
fuck?
funny. I didn't tell him this, by the way. I did not tell him this at all. So I clear
I
up my
could
schedule.
swore.
And he never hits me up. And I was
Wait,
talking to
bullshit. Wait, hold on. You
you have
said
to go back.
March
It's in
21st. Is what you said?
sometime in March. It was one of the days.
Okay, hold
It
on.
was long
Hold
back,
on.
and I'll tell this story while you're looking because
No, yeah, go
I'll
ahead.
tell you.
Because now I'm really
Um,
confused.
and so it didn't happen. I'm talking to somebody about it. I was like, and they're like, "Why do you think it didn't happen?" And I'm sharing this because I consider Drake a friend, so I can be honest with him. I tell the person, I said, "Well, he's had heavy hitters on his podcast. You know, I wouldn't bring me on back either, to be honest."
Wait,
And
hold
then,
on. Oh, oh, fuck.
I knew this. I was waiting. I didn't know if I was gonna do it or not on the recording, but I was like, "Come on," because I'm not even upset about it anymore. But I told this person I was talking to, I said, "Here's a crazy statistic. I'm the only person that he's had on the podcast prior of before this year that he has not brought back." I was like, "He's got heavy hitters like Cosmo, his boy Vikash, Marley,
Well,
Seth." I was like, back to
usually because we
Patrick.
schedule it like right after, like literally like after we get done. I spend like 5 minutes like scheduling the next one. How did I?
It's all
God
good.
damn
It
it!
just made me laugh. Was I was like,
Wait, hold on. What the? Okay, wait, hold on. So I did. I'll own up to that. I did. Uh, okay, wait, hold on, dude. We didn't even. Hold on. Here's the thing, though. To be fair, we didn't square away a movie, and I think that's why I didn't put it in my calendar. Because usually, now granted, I've gotten a little bit better at that now, where I'll just put if we haven't squared away a movie yet, I'll put in at least the person that I'm putting on the podcast for that day, so I know that it's at least squared away. And we didn't talk about a movie. How far back did I go? Too far back now.
it's
But yeah,
February. It was.
nope,
Yeah, I
that's
thought it was strange,
100% on me.
but it just made
That is
me laugh
100%
because
on me.
when I post Drugstore Cowboy, and you're like, "Oh, thank,"
Yeah.
you're like, you said something along the lines of like, "Oh, I'm really glad you posted this." I was like, "Is Drake gonna forget again?" So as you are Drake and I'm from California, I did the next best thing outside of Kendrick Lamar when you deal with a Drake was I didn't make a diss. I listened to Kendrick, but I was just like,
No,
let's see
I
if he remembers. It just made me laugh
I
so hard. It just
remembered I
and
remembered that I was on the podcast. I couldn't remember what movie we were watching. And I was like, I know I'm on the podcast tomorrow. Like I know because I could feel in the back of my head, you know how you get that feeling where like I know I need to do something, I just can't remember what it is. Or I know I need to watch something, but I can't remember what it is. And it's like that nagging feeling in the back of your head where you're like, I can't what is it? And it's driving you nuts. And the second you post it, because I literally I had posted not even 2 seconds prior to you posting that you were watching Drugstore Cowboy, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna watch Lord of the Rings since I can't figure out what this is. And then you go and post that, and I went, oh shit, I gotta turn this off. And I was like, okay, I gotta watch this instead. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's what it was. And now that I look at yeah, we didn't even select a fucking
no,
movie. No, we didn't. I don't even know if I did have some. Did I have someone on March? I did 3 recordings in a week. And I couldn't remember which ones I did, which ones were supposed to be when, because um I had 2 with Vikash and then 1 with Josh, who was in the UK. So I was trying to figure out the times and the dates, and I had 3 of them that I had to do in a week, and I forgot. That was the problem. I figured it out now. But we are gonna schedule
well,
after this because I already told you that we're gonna schedule after this anyways.
if it happened to anybody, it should happen. Out of any of your guests, it's
No.
best to happen to me because it's not like I had anything else to do. But I always left the day open completely, and even like the week
Yeah.
because I was like, just
Well,
in case message me. I could have messaged you, right? But then I was
I was
like,
about to say, at least to also be fair to myself, you could have easily been like, "Hey, by the way, are we doing this?" I would have watched it that night, and then we would have recorded the next day.
I'm not even upset. It's just you gotta roll with these funny things like this. It just happens. It just happens, you
Well,
know.
yeah, that's the thing is, like, once you do this enough, you'll be like, "Oh, yeah, this happens." Like, especially if you're bringing on, like, not a consistent person every time, you're like, "Oh, yeah, this shit just happens."
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're in good company, though. I will say some names who have not shown up. Jason David Frank, the original Green Ranger, rest in peace. But I got stood up by him. Ryan
Yeah.
Sands, one of the parents from Marvel's Runaways, also did that to me. And then somebody from Smallville also never. Scheduled an interview and they did not follow up. Like they didn't even call. I'm sitting there for hours waiting for a call to do an interview. Never came. So you're in good company because all you you guys are too busy. But anyways, thank you so much for being on this podcast, and I
Of
have to
course.
give you a lot of respect and admiration, and my thanks because this podcast wouldn't be possible to be rebooted if it wasn't for me basically just taking your whole
Oh,
format outside of the first watch.
nah, this
I
is
hate
all
bringing
you,
it up like
honestly.
that,
I said this
but
yesterday whenever we talked. Like, this is all you. Like, you had to do the work. You had to be the one to press play. You had to be the one to organize everything. Like, don't play yourself down.
You've done enough podcasts. You've heard me off the recording to know that if there's a way for me to punch myself down, every
Oh, I do
opportunity
it all
will
the
be
time too. I do it all the
true.
time too.
But
I
you're a
just
lot
try
more
not to.
optimistic. Yeah, but you're doing good. You're doing
Yeah.
good. But yes, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being supportive of this behind the
Yeah, of
scenes
course.
and up to now. I hope you do come back. Uh,
Mhm.
it's hard. I've been getting a lot of cancellations, so might have to ask you to come back. But
Yeah, of course.
yeah, it's been fun. Is there anything else before we let you go?
No, not really. Not that I can think of.
Perfect. Well, thank you. All right. I appreciate Drake, aka Average Film Dude or Guy on Twitter, coming on to the podcast. I'm still like a Mandela effect with that whole name. But yes, thank you, man. He's a great guy, and I definitely check out his podcast, The First Watch. I'm gonna link that all in the show notes, including the episode we did together for his podcast. And that concludes this episode of Tomorrow Comes Movies. If you like what you heard or saw, depending where you're watching this, you can follow the show on every podcast, streaming platform: Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon. There's so many. And then, of course, if you want to watch the video version, we're on YouTube. And you can basically click on the show notes link. That will take you to all the links to wherever you want to get the podcast at. And social media. If you would like to follow the show, stay up to date, and know what's coming soon, or just want to share you're listening or watching, or you want to tell me I'm terrible, yeah, you can do that at TOCMovies at Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. I might forgetting this. Threads and TikTok at TOC Movies. What else? I do this and I go blank. Oh, if you want to be on the podcast, you can reach out. My Twitter mutuals can reach out, or somebody I know in real life. Everybody's welcome to come join the conversation. Just shoot me a message if I haven't already, and just know it will be video and audio format. And if you're not comfortable, let me know ahead of time, and we'll just only release the audio version. But I'll see you still, so when we record, the conversation is going to be fluid, and I'll know not to talk over you. Okay, yeah. And that about wraps it up. I am the Patrick, your host. Thank you so much for tuning in, and stay tuned for another episode of Tomorrow Comes Movies.